This geology class is about more than just the subject of geology. It's a vehicle for conveying what science is. So let's consider a few important characteristics of science. Science provides explanatory descriptions. In other words, a scientific theory is a robust explanation, not a guess. Theories in science, thus, are distinguishable from what typically we might say, oh, I have a theory. Well, to say that in a commonplace way is simply to say, oh, I have an idea, which is fine. But a scientific theory is much more than that. It is a detailed description of some aspect of the universe's workings. It is based upon long observation and, where possible, experiment. A theory in science is the result of careful reasoning from these observations and experiments, and has withstood the critical study of scientists generally. Science is guided by natural law. In other words, scientific laws are descriptions. They're distillations of repeated observations of phenomena, often written in the language of mathematics. An example of a natural law, well, the universal law of gravitation. Newton determined and wrote in a scientific or a mathematical language the fact that the masses of two objects and their distance from one another would express or were the bases for determining the gravitational attraction between them. Another example of a scientific law, sometimes found on t-shirts, is 186,282 miles per second. It's not only a good idea, it's the law. Speed of light. Scientific conclusions are testable against the empirical world. In other words, science seeks out demanding tests. Science tries to expose itself to what one author referred to as the tribunal of nature in the riskiest way possible. Science doesn't run from controversy. In fact, science thrives on differences of opinion resolved by testing against the empirical world around us. Scientific conclusions are tentative and revisable. In other words, science is a moving target. Science textbooks are revised, well, not necessarily because publishers are trying to profit from students, but because science itself is being revised, the conclusions of science. Scientific conclusions are disprovable. In other words, science is not about proving things to be true, but proving them to be false. Scientific research is often the process of going up blind alleys simply to verify that they're blind. Science is an evidence-based consensus of experts. Succinctly put, facts matter. Facts are the data of the world. They are agreed upon by scientists and are confirmed to such a high degree that it would, in the words of another scientist, it would be perverse to withhold provisional assent that they are true. The sun appears to rise in the east, but in fact, the earth rotates under the sun, which presumes that the earth is a sphere. These are facts, scientific facts. Trivial to some, but to others, maybe you might think otherwise. But to think otherwise is not to deal in the realm of fact-based science. Science, bottom line, is an exciting activity. Science is a verb. The most exciting phrase to hear in science is not, "Eureka, I found it." The most exciting phrase is, "That's funny." I'll give you an example. A fellow by the name of Alexander Fleming. He was a microbiologist back in the 1920s. He left on vacation. He left his lab, and he's kind of a slob, so he didn't clean up as well as he should have after himself. Comes back to his lab after his vacation and discovers he has all these petri dishes. He'd been studying bacteria And the bacteria had just gotten all over the dishes, and mold had gotten into the dishes, and he was throwing out petri dishes right and left. And then he paused with one of the petri dishes, and he looked at it, and what he saw was mold, but he also noted there were no bacteria. He went sort of like this. That's funny. That phrase, that sense of discovery by having stumbled upon something of an anomaly, that discovery led to penicillin and saved more lives in the 20th century than any other scientific discovery. I hope that gives you a better sense of what science is.